consider the forced isolation, and I know some are in quarantine, and see whether there is any consolation in this new normal. These are extraordinary times. The world is alarmed. The fear of catching coronavirus, also known as COVID-19, is sweeping the world over. Nobody can remember anything like this before. People are forced to stay in isolation, and perhaps you are. We are forced to stay at home by this unseen enemy. You are forced to be quiet. Staying still and quiet is strange territory for most of us. We are used to action and noise, always on the move, running from one thing to another, moving from one place to another, and now in isolation. We've had harrowing stories from quarantine stations, some which could be hilarious if they were not so tragic. Not used to quietness, some are feeling empty and lost. Others are feeling threatened. They feel like going mad. This lockdown is probably driving you crazy. But could there be a benefit in this time of silence from the buzz of life? No doubt God is speaking to you. Question is, are you listening? Are you? If you explore the Bible, you will discover that God spoke in situations of silence, isolation, or even quarantine. Likewise, God will speak to you in this strange period of silence, but only if you stop and embrace the silence. You see, COVID-19 has visited untold tragedy on mankind. But the greatest tragedy is if you fail to hear the voice of God for your life. But for you to hear the voice of God, you have to turn your focus from the chatter, from the clatter about the virus, and listen to the still small voice speaking to the inner you. Of course, you need to know enough about COVID-19 so that you can protect yourself and also hear the voice of God to help you make sense of this experience. You see, God does not waste your time. Our God is not a sadistic old man sitting in heaven trying to make life as hard and as difficult as he can. He is a loving Father who desires only the very best for his children. As a matter of fact, his mercies, they fail not, and they are new every morning. Those comforting words are from Prophet Jeremiah in Lamentation, chapter 3. Listen to him. Yes, these I call to mind, and therefore I have hope. Because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed, for his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. I say to myself, the Lord is my portion. Therefore I will wait for him. The Lord is good to those who put hope in him. To the one who seeks him, it is good to wait quietly for the salvation of the Lord. For no one is cast off from the Lord forever. May the Lord, God of heaven, keep you safe and strong and protect you and your loved ones from the dangers of COVID-19. Amen.
Next on
Mwanao anakusifu. Tabasamu.
Due to my health condition, I will go after the project finishes. I'm sorry.
Nina moyo wa dhati, bila shaka nitafaulu. Hello? Hello?
Sitakushukuru.
Next on Corner.
Last night, I came up with the most brilliant idea.
You have my attention.
Am I missing something here?
This gym is falling apart, Uncle Jimmy. Everything has changed since Wanjala's victory. We've entered into a comfort zone.
I don't think we have entered into a comfort zone.
I disagree.
Whatever you're selling, I'm not buying. Please do, nisikize.
So they come crying to you again. I said my door was open. Why can't they come to me directly? I've earned that right.
Fine Tuesday morning. Good morning to you from whichever place you're watching Good Morning Kenya from. Always a delight to have you making time to joining us on the show every other morning. As usual, we have a packed show lined up for you this morning, and I'll be speaking to one Florence Ndeti. She will be helping us understand about the invisible laborer, in essence, the donkey. So what can we do as a society to value and treat these animals well, even as we look forward for the 1st of May, which happens to be Laborers' Day? She'll be helping us understand more about this animal, what you can do as a society, as well as the economic impact of the donkey to our society. Also remember that our segment in the headline will also be coming your way up shortly, where we get to sample out for you some of the stories that have been well written in detail in our major newspapers, as well as the fact that we are also live on YouTube and Facebook. So that means you can stream us live if you're not at the comfort of your home or have access to a TV. You can stream us live on either Facebook or YouTube. Our social media platforms are also open on Twitter at KBC Channel 1, as well as mine at Doreen Arange, at Fiona Shuru, at Jane Bomboi, and at Ram Aguko. Many thanks for making time to join us on the show this morning. My name is Doreen Arange. Good morning.
A very good morning to you. My name is Fiona Shuru, and I'll be bringing you the news segment on Good Morning Kenya. We call it the Good Morning Kenya News Brief. So I will just start with that, the news. The government has laid down stringent measures to be followed by restaurants that will be allowed to resume operations. However, Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe directed that the staff working at these establishments during the stipulated hours must first test for coronavirus and come up with social distancing space before being allowed to resume operations. Kagwe made the remarks when he announced that 8 more people had tested positive for the virus, bringing the total number to 363 in Kenya.
COVID-19 cases in the country rose to 363 Monday after 8 new confirmations following tests conducted since Sunday. Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe saying the new cases are spread out in Nairobi and the coastal town of Mombasa.
We now in this country have some 363 positive cases in Kenya, some 8 new cases. And these 8 new cases come equally from Nairobi and Mombasa, because we have got 4 from Mombasa, and you can see now Mombasa is becoming a concern, an area of concern. And we have got the rest of them from Nairobi, and all of them are Kenyans.
Speaking at Afya House on Monday, CS Kagwe said that 8 more patients had been discharged from hospital, raising the total number of people who have recovered from COVID-19 in the country to 114. The CS announcing that the government was going to allow restaurants to open to the public, however instituting strict rules on physical distancing to prevent the spread of the novel coronavirus.
Anybody walking into a restaurant must wash their hands first. They must sanitize themselves. They must have a mask, and more seriously, is that restaurants that are going to open with people who have been tested, who are going to be COVID-free. So if your persons have not been tested, you cannot open a restaurant.
According to the CS, restaurants must also limit the number of customers to 4 people for every 10 square meters, and the tables spaced at least 1.5 meters apart.
Restaurants will operate between 5 and 4 p.m., not later than that, because after that, then it becomes difficult to for the people to get home, just for curfew. But at least within that period, a lot of people were not able to go for lunch. Places near them can be able to do so. There are people who work in those restaurants. They can be able to do so. But of course, for them to do that, we also have asked that those restaurants that are going to open for this purpose must limit the number of persons who are going to be in the restaurant so that they can be able to keep the social distances that we have recommended. They can be able to keep at least 4 people for 10 square meters. The tables within the dining areas must be spaced at least 1.5 meters apart from each other, and customer sitting must also maintain the social distancing that is required.
He was speaking when he inaugurated the National Advisory Committee to advise and oversee the supply and utilization of blood and blood products in the country.
The role of this task force would be to work through the Ministry of Health and with the Ministry of Health to come up with a new strategy, policy, guidelines, new ways of doing business and new ways of managing blood, and the blood being managed centrally from one source as opposed to different ways being done now. Privately is being done by private people, hospitals and other organizations.
We are so involved in the issue of the management of COVID-19. I think it is important for us to remember that the rest of the disease system in the country continues. There is a tendency to think that we are now, this ministry is a ministry of COVID-19. Even I hear children are calling me Waziri wa Corona.
While it's a relief for restaurant owners after Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said they can now officially open their businesses, this comes with a condition: each member of staff must test negative for COVID-19. At the same time, the CS said this was not a license for pub and club owners to start operating. They remain closed until when the government will weigh in and see whether to escalate or de-escalate measures put to prevent spread of COVID-19 in the country. Purity Museo, Channel 1 News, Nairobi.
Dozens of people were seeking entry and exit from Nairobi were yesterday turned back as the government moves to ensure strict adherence to measures put in place to curb the spread of COVID-19. Only those deemed to provide essential services were allowed past roadblocks, following the presidential directive that Kenyans must avoid unnecessary travel. Edward Kabasa spent the better part of the day with the police manning the Rironi roadblock along Nairobi-Nakuru Highway and filed the following report.
It is a meticulous process necessitated by the rise in coronavirus cases in the country. Everyone passing through this roadblock is asked to explain why they are leaving or seeking entry into the capital city. Nairobi has seen an exponential rise in coronavirus infections, and the government is leaving nothing to chance.
That Kenyans are following the government directives, social distancing, they are using masks. Like me, I'm practically using the mask, sanitization, and of course, we must maintain hygiene in the general republic.
Those who failed to provide adequate documentation or reasons for travel were immediately turned back. The government is limiting movement of people in and out of Nairobi, Mombasa, Kilifi, Kwale and Mandera counties, with only those providing essential services being allowed through, albeit under some strict guidelines.
Your permit,
barua ya chifu, barua ya OCS na district commander, district county commander.
There are currently 363 coronavirus cases in the country, with the bulk of the infections being in the 5 counties. The steady rise in coronavirus cases in the country has forced the government to enforce strict adherence to existing preventive measures, meaning roadblocks like this may be in place for some time. For Channel 1 News, I am Edward Kabasa.
Confusion reigned yesterday morning when the police manning a road barrier near Thika Blue Post Hotel barred health workers from crossing in enforcement of the cessation of movement under the COVID-19 prevention measures. The incident drew a sharp reaction from the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists, Dentists Union, which advised its members to abscond duty if their travel to work is restricted. Police, however, maintained that those exempted from the restrictions under the essential service category ought to provide adequate information to be allowed to travel.
Very simple. Unakuja, tutapeana list, you identify against the list.
The enforcement of the government directive on cessation of movement in and out of Nairobi County caused an altercation Monday morning between health workers from Kiambu and Murang'a counties and police manning a road barrier near the Thika Blue Post Hotel.
We want a name, the list, and with a photo, and which hospital you're working.
I suggest we can have a stamp from your end so that in future, if that person comes with the same document and you see your stamp, you just, hata hakuna kubishana.
The close to 500 health workers claimed police restricted their movement on their way to work even after identifying themselves. A matter that drew the wrath of the Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union.
For the safety and protection of our healthcare workers in that region, they shall go back home until such a time that the relevant authorities implementing this directive shall feel that doctors are important to serve Kenyans in this country.
Police, however, maintained that the medics ought to have provided adequate information, including their area of work, to facilitate their movement across the affected counties.
So let us sort out now. Is the list ready? So next time we want the photos of every doctor.
We respect your duties as professionals. You equally need to respect the duties of other professionals.
The health workers also opposed the move to quarantine those in breach of the curfew. According to health officials, concerted efforts in provision of healthcare and personal protective equipment will limit the spread of COVID-19 in the country. KMPDU is opposing the closure of level 3 and 2 hospitals at the counties, saying the move is risking the well-being of Kenyans in those affected regions.
That is not the way to go. If we go that way, what will happen is that we are leaving the communities unattended. If a situation arises where you have a suspected case and you do not have the requisite PPEs, the Occupational Safety Health Act gives you the power and authority to take a step back, because the Occupational Safety Health Act has duties to both employers and employees. So the employers must provide the PPEs.
Irene Mchuma Odim, Channel 1.
In Kilimani are investigating 18 people arrested at an apartment in Nairobi's Jamhuri Estate in a compromising situation, violating directives set by the government to fight coronavirus pandemic. According to Lucas Ogara, the officer in charge of Kilimani Police Division, amongst those arrested include 13 males and 5 females.
A few minutes before 7 p.m. Sunday, officers from the Kilimani Police Division raided Harlequin Court's Metropolitan apartment following a tip-off from one of the residents that there were suspicious activities in one of the houses. On arrival, the officers found 18 people in the one-bedroomed house. Kilimani Area OCPD Lucas Ogara says those who were arrested were aged between 14 and 30 years. In the process, police recovered cameras which detectives were reviewing to establish what was being filmed by the group. Ogara said the suspects will face charges ranging from failing to observe social distancing measures and not putting on masks. The OCPD did not disclose if the suspects will be taken to quarantine. Suleiman Yeri, Channel 1 News.
The number of confirmed coronavirus cases globally continues to rise, with more than 2,943,000 reported cases in 185 countries. The virus has so far claimed over 207,000 lives worldwide. The United States of America continues to record the largest number of cases, currently standing at more than 900,000 confirmed cases, with more than 51,000 fatalities.
Spain, Italy, France and the UK, the worst hit European countries, have all recorded more than 20,000 deaths, with Italy recording second highest deaths at more than 26,000 and Spain recording the second highest number of infections at more than 220,000. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson on Sunday urged Britain not to lose patience with the lockdown, saying the UK is at the moment of maximum risk in the coronavirus outbreak.
And yes, I can see the long-term consequences of lockdown as clearly as anyone. And so yes, I entirely share your urgency. It's the government's urgency. And yet we must also recognise the risk of a second spike. The risk of losing control of that virus and letting the reproduction rate go back over 1. Because that would mean not only a new wave of death and disease, but also an economic disaster.
In Africa, experts continue to warn of fragile healthcare systems in many nations they claim could be overwhelmed should the COVID-19 outbreak become severe. Lesotho and Comoros are the only two African countries yet to report a case of the virus. As of April 27th, the confirmed number of coronavirus deaths on the continent stood at 1,423. Confirmed infections are more than 31,900, with over 9,500 recoveries. So far, Senegal, through its $1 testing kits, is said to have demonstrated a possible model in curbing COVID-19, relying on their experience of managing the Ebola outbreak. Most countries on the continent have put in place restrictions to prevent the spread of the virus. Countries such as Australia, New Zealand, Iran and Spain, however, are moving to ease coronavirus lockdown as daily infections and deaths slow. While around 3 million people are known to have been infected worldwide, the true figure is thought to be much higher, as many of those with milder symptoms have not been tested and counted. More than 875,000 people have so far recovered from the virus. Kamche Menza for Channel 1 News.
Transport along Olkalau-Njabini Road has been paralyzed after Thitai Bridge on the Malewa River was washed away by flash floods on Sunday night. Heavy rains have been pounding in the area for the last 3 days, prompting the Nyandarua County government to redirect motorists to alternative routes in order to access Olkalau, Engineer and Njabini towns.
The rains pounding many parts of the country continue to cause more harm than good. In Nyandarua County, a bridge on Malewa River was washed away by flash floods on Sunday night, causing the closure of the road connecting to Olkalau and Njabini towns. CAC in charge of roads and public works, Ndungu Wangenye, who toured the area, said they are consulting with the Kenya National Highways Authority to ensure the bridge is constructed.
Let us not endanger our lives anymore. We are cautioning the heavy trucks that may intend to use this road maybe to bypass the blockage that we have already put. Please, let's avoid that. Let's wait for the team of engineers to do their.
Meanwhile, a section of Thika Town residents in Kisumu County are accounting losses after flood waters swept the area, leaving a trail of destruction. The residents blamed the chaotic situation on poor planning of residential areas. Among buildings affected are those at Section 9 Estate, where the area Member of Parliament Patrick Wainaina's office is located.
Ofisi yake iko hapa tu karibu ni mita kama 5 ama 10. Kwake kumeflood, kukiflood yeye utoroka na anasema yeye ni engineer. Sasa ametuacha.
In Murera and Kimbo areas in Juja, residents are living in fear of an outbreak of waterborne diseases, including cholera after rainwater mixed with sewage flooded their homes. The most affected are homeowners in Kimbo area, where at least 20 homes were submerged in water following heavy rains.
So asa wakati huu kumenyesha sana, tumekuwa na shida sana ya maji. Na hii maji ni kama pia imeshikana na sewage, kwa sababu kuna mahali hii maji inatoka na huko juu, na tunaona vile inakuja ni kama bado kuna vile imepita wakati walikuwa naweka hiyo sewer line ni kama imeshikana na sewage.
Elsewhere, Kenya National Highways Authority has begun repairs at the Enkari-Ngosor Bridge right next to Masai Mara Vocational Training Institute along the Narok Maimayu road that was cut off by flood waters on Thursday.
Tuko na magari, iko na machakura, ingine iko na madawa na ina njia ingine ya kupita. Kama tunaweza ruhusiwa, kwa hiyo kanjia tutengenezewe. Kwa serikali tunaweza shukrani sana.
Tumepata shida sana kati ya hii barabara yetu imekatika na tumekuwa na shida ngumu sasa. Kama saa hizi naenda duka moja kazi, natembea karibu kilomita 3 mguu ndio nipate gari ingine.
And in Busia, flood victims in Amkura West constituency have received over 520 bags of rice and 20 cartons of oil from the national government.
The consignment actually contains over 550 bags of rice, 20 cartons of cooking oil. And from those who received the consignment, it is said it's meant for the flood victims of Amkura West Ward, particularly Kiriamas, Parater, Odioi, and Totokakile.
Reporting for Channel 1 News, I'm Timothy Kipnusu.
Chief Kadhi Mohammed Muda has distanced himself from calls by some Muslim faithfuls for the reopening of mosques during the most holy month of Ramadan. The Chief Kadhi instead urged the Muslims to adhere to the directives given by the government following the COVID-19 pandemic. And as Ann Buri reports, this year's holy month of Ramadan is one of its kind, with praying norms and the usual social breakfasts of the government barred social gatherings following the coronavirus outbreak.
Chief Kadhi Mohammed Mordar has called on the Muslim faithful to adhere to the regulated directives by the government as they continue with fasting. He called for calm among the Muslim faithful, noting that this year the holy month of Ramadan is unique in the sense that they will not have a chance to conduct Hijjah in Mecca like has been the norm.
This time, Saudi Arabia is most likely that, there'll be no Hajj this year, and there'll be no Umrah since, the COVID, pandemic. So we have to bear also with the Saudi Arabian authorities the way we bear with our local authorities.
Since it's a month of giving, the Chief Kadhi has urged those willing to assist the less fortunate to do so within the stipulated directives.
If you want to give out whatever alms, sadaqah, or cooked food, whatever cooked meals, then you can do it, during the 14 hours which we are allowed, to move around freely.
However, a section of Muslim faithfuls are calling on the government to at least consider reopening the mosques and erect sanitization booths outside as a precaution measure.
Ikiwa sisi tuna viongozi Mombasa, tuna matajiri wanaweza fanya mambo ya sanitization barabarani, waifanye ile sanitization kwenye misikiti. Watuwekee sanitization kwenye misikiti ifunguliwe, watu waingie waswali.
Sasa tungefanya ibada kwa ukamilifu. Corona na kuambia president wetu tungeimaliza hapa Kenya, kwa sababu sisi tuko karibu na Mungu wakati ule.
Meanwhile, the streets of Mombasa remained deserted and not as busy as has been the norm during this period of Ramadan, but business was still ongoing. Debt sellers, who usually conduct booming business during this period, lamented how business has been slow. Debts are normally used to break the fast.
Sasa tunafanya tu kwa kimazoea, lakini kwa hakika kibiashara hairidhishi kabisa.
A spot check in the Marikiti market and nothing different, the vendors are facing the same predicament.
Nauzia watu akisema mpunguzie, tunakubali, tunajua ile situation vile iko sahihi. Sio watu wengi wana senti hakuna.
There are those calling on the government to consider extending the curfew hours from 7 p.m. to 9 p.m. during the Ramadan period to allow them to conduct more business.
Kama serikali inaweza kuona kutupatia mwanya na sisi Waislamu tuweze fanya biashara zetu mwanzo wa asubuhi mpaka saa 3 ili tuweze kuwahi majumbani ili tuendelee na biashara zetu kama Wakenya.
For Channel 1 News Hour from Mombasa County, I am Anburu.
Kisumu County is set to digitize medical records of all those seeking treatment in public hospitals to streamline resources in the health sector. Area Governor Anyang' Nyong'o says the current setup has made it difficult to effectively track drugs dispensation. The county has also stopped the use of private vehicles to distribute drugs to public health facilities. Achola Simon with the report.
Governor Nyong'o said in the prevailing setup in most public hospitals, it was difficult to audit use of drugs.
If we do this, we shall cut this problem of pilferage of drugs from our health system to other private facilities in town. I know that in the past what has happened when KEMSA drugs right here, entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs in the county begin liaising with private pharmacies. Drugs has arrived. Then you get things pilfering from KEMSA, and before you know it, what you're accounting for, quite a number of it has gone to private facilities. This must stop.
He said his administration was keen on ensuring digitization of medical records to stop wastage. The county, according to Governor Nyong'o, will no longer procure services of private vehicles to distribute drugs.
As per the law, government stores should not be transported using private vehicles. This has to stop immediately. Tuk-tuks, motorbikes and private vehicles will no longer be used to distribute government drugs and supplies in Kisumu County.
Nyong'o spoke as he flagged off medicine worth 40 million shillings to various hospitals across the county. Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital will get a bigger chunk of the supply, with medicine worth 22 million shillings going to the facility. The county also expects medicine worth 20 million shillings next week. In the meantime, several families from Kisumu County have received dairy goats in the ongoing efforts by the county government to enhance dairy farming in the county. Achola Simon, reporting for Channel 1 News from Kisumu County.
The Kenya Private Sector Alliance has lauded the government for putting in place measures to cushion the agriculture sector following the economic effects of coronavirus pandemic. KEPSA chairman in charge of agriculture, Dr. Bimal Kantaria, at the same time urged private companies to be humane as they plan to do job cuts due to COVID-19 effects.
The Kenya Private Sector Alliance KEPSA has rallied behind government efforts to cushion Kenyans, especially through tax waivers, following the economic hardship brought about by the coronavirus effect. Speaking during a meeting with the Agriculture Media Network Forum, Elgon Kenya CEO Dr. Bimal Kantaria, who is also a director at KEPSA, subsequently urged private companies to complement the government's efforts on job losses and layoffs by offering incentives and consumables to the affected staff.
So to be honest, a lot of companies have reached out. I mean, I just get amazed with Kenyan companies in terms of strife. They all come out in large numbers. And we want to thank the government as well. The Tax Amendment Act that came out the other day, we talked to the government and they agreed that anything to do with fertilizer or agriculture related, they would remove them from the VAT list.
Kantaria further allowed the Ministry of Agriculture's effort to deal with the desert locust menace, which he says could pose a challenge to food security in the country.
So many chemicals are required for that particular locust, so they've had to fly the chemicals in. Again, I think it's good what they're doing. So I think the responsibility of FAO has been very good. We're in partnership with FAO, they're on our ASNET committee. So we admire what they're doing to the Kenyan people.
Kantaria also confirmed the slow but steady rise in the horticulture industry, with many European countries opening their borders to allow flowers from Kenya.
I know the media reported there's a big problem with overseas demand and flowers had laid off a lot of people, but the reverse has happened in the last 2 weeks. We've seen a massive increase in demand for flowers, of Kenyan flowers and Kenyan horticulture product. Farms are beginning to rehire people now. The only limitation now is flights out of Kenya.
The horticulture industry has been hit hard by the coronavirus, with some airlines now converting their passenger jets to cargo planes to take advantage of the cargo and luggage industry.
A jailbird was yesterday morning killed. His girlfriend seriously injured following a love triangle that also saw 3 houses burnt in Kakro village, Suna East constituency, amid a standoff between villagers and police. Police were forced to lob tear gas canisters and shot in the air to scare angry villagers who were baying for the blood of the killers, who included a Nyumba Kumi elder. Meanwhile, a section of families evicted from Mau Forest last year and resettled at Olemekenyu area have received donations to cushion them from the effect of novel coronavirus.
The deceased was among prisoners recently released from custody at Migori GK prison, allegedly assaulted his girlfriend after accusing her of having an affair with their neighbor while he was in jail. The accused neighbor is said to have sought reinforcement of a local Nyumba Kumi elder who together beat the jailbird to his death. The development, however, angered the locals who burnt the suspects' houses. Police were forced to lob tear gas canisters and shoot in the air to scare the angry villagers, who also blocked the BC Migori-Kisii highway, causing a huge traffic snarl-up.
I'm urging the residents to remain calm, to maintain peace, because whatever happened is an illegality, and the police will make the investigation to make sure that these things never happen again.
Ile kitu ningependa kuambia watu wa Kakra, tuache kuwa watu ambao tunachukua sheria kwa mikono. Tungoje wakati shida imetokea, polisi wakuje na wajue ni kwa nini hiyo kitu imefanyika, na wale wamefanya hiyo kitu wachukuliwe hatua.
Elsewhere, more than 500 families in Narok South in Olemekenyu area have a reason to smile after they received foodstuffs, bar of soap, masks and hand-washing facilities to maintain their hygiene. A Muria Dikir Member of Parliament Johanna Ngeno urged the residents to use the donation and protect themselves from contaminating the deadly virus, urging them to adhere to the measures put by the government.
Waja tukuje tuwa provide, tuwape masks, tuwape sanitizers, tuwape tanks ya maji, na tuhakikishe kwamba kila mtu wakati anaingia kwa hii camp awe amenawa mkono na awe amevaa mask.
In Baringo County, residents of Kelelwa and Kimosa in Mogoto constituency had a sigh of relief after Hindu Service Center from Nakuru donated food packs and popo seedling as part of short-term and long-term measures in alleviating hunger.
We are giving some hampers containing some rice, ugali, vimi porridge and other food items. And along with them we are giving the seedling, that is papaya seedling, because I have asked the agriculture officer. She told that she is motivating the people to grow papaya because this side the soil is more suitable for growing papaya.
Elsewhere, Taita Taveta County CEC in charge of finance and planning, Andrew Kubo, says plans are underway by the county to allow small businesses closed by the county return to service from next month. Finally, a section of women in Kihagaini and Mwirua villages of Gaturi Ward, Kiharu constituency, Murang'a County, have raised alarm over an increase in women underwear theft by a known person. The women say the thief is collecting the used panties from almost every homestead and taking them probably for some rituals.
Kwa vienye tumepata, tunaanika wamonyinyi kwa bafu, tunapata zimeshaenda. Hiyo ni kitu imetushika na mstuko. Juu hata saa hii hatujui kama ni watoto tutanunulia unga, hii ni corona, au ni watoto saa hii wanatuitisha, tunawauliza ni unga nitanunua ama ni wamonyinyi nitakuvaia.
Sasa tunasidwa, anachukua anapeleka wapi? Saa ingine tunasikia wanachukua wanaenda kutengeneza mask. eti moja inatengeneza maski mbili kulingana na size, hata inaweza tengeneza maski kama 4 kulingana na vile iko kubwa. Sasa tunahofia wakichukua za mabibi zetu watakuwa wanafanya nini?
Those in the ICT space are being challenged to harness their creativity and innovation to help Kenya fight the COVID-19 pandemic. This is by tapping their skills in ICT to come up with solutions that will enhance provision of healthcare, food distribution, and help Kenyans fight dignified work opportunities. ICT Cabinet Secretary Joe Musheru says the government is seeking to leverage on technology to contain the spread of COVID-19.
The government is seeking to minimize the impact of coronavirus pandemic through solution-based innovations. It is with this view that the government has partnered with the United Nations Development Programme, the Association of Countrywide Innovation Hubs, among other key players in the ICT sector, to launch the Great COVID-19 Innovation Challenge. The challenge seeks to harness the creativity and innovative capabilities of Kenyans and Africans to cushion Kenyans against the threat posed by the COVID-19. ICT Cabinet Secretary Joe Musheru is urging innovators to prioritize creation of solutions that will make it easy for health workers to access vital information and respond effectively on COVID-19 cases.
This committee, we got private sector, we got academia, we got people from the Ministry of Health. We've got a selection of people that can look at these ideas and see how best to implement.
Those in the ICT space are being challenged to tap their skills to come up with solutions that will enhance provision of healthcare, food distribution, and help Kenyans find dignified work opportunities as the globe tackles COVID-19.
Looking at ideas on how now during this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19, how work will be, what are these new ideas and opportunities that can be created.
Musheru says among the application hosted at the National Data Center is a call center that will offer key information to front health workers to empower them make prompt decisions on managing the COVID-19 pandemic.
There is some financial support required to run a business. There is money that has come in the fund. Some of that may support those innovations because they are being used in the COVID-19 fight.
Benson Rioba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
The production of personal protective equipment has given manufacturers a lifeline as demand for other goods, non-essential goods, has been declining. Omega Apparels, which has been forced to close shop and send all employees home due to closure of schools, so demand for uniform it produces dwindle. A few weeks on, the company's machines are back to life, and employees who were home on unpaid leave now have their jobs back as the company now produces face masks. Here is Betty Kintu with the details.
David Odoyo, a young tailor working for Omega Apparels Limited in Nairobi, had lost income for some time since the outbreak of the COVID-19 pandemic, which has forced the temporary closure of many organizations across the world. The company that Odoyo works for used to produce uniforms for learners. However, with the closure of schools across the nation in mid-March, the factory no longer receives any new orders, forcing workers to stay at home. He was worried.
Life has been becoming very difficult. This type of disease has brought many challenges to many families.
Raj Shah, the manager of Omega, was even more anxious. He had to look for new orders for the company to make money until he embraced the idea of producing masks.
Had to change to masks so that my people can survive. We make on a daily basis about 15,000 reusable cloth masks, and we make about 25,000 surgical masks.
More local companies like Omega are shifting their production to tap the new opportunities created by COVID-19 and demand for products.
We have seen a number of manufacturers retooling and getting into new areas of manufacturing to meet the growing demands and needs in the market. We have over 30, people now doing face masks, both cloth and the surgical ones. The list keeps increasing as members see that as an opportunity to invest in.
Betty Kiptum, Channel 1 Business.
Farmers who have maize stalks from last year's harvest are being urged to sell the produce to millers, as imported grain is expected in the country in June. Strategic Food Reserve Chair Noah Wekesa says the price of maize is still favorable and farmers should take advantage and sell their produce.
As we said earlier, it's a maximum of 4 million bags. And these quantities have been worked out after we looked at the shortfalls that will be there between now and the harvesting season in late July.
These are the sentiments from Agriculture Cabinet Secretary Peter Munya that are causing panic among farmers in the maize growing belt who have opted to sell their produce in fear of being priced out by imported stocks.
Hizi importation inafanywa, wakulima tuko kulima, hayo imports yatakutana na hii mahindi yetu ya shambani tu na tutapata hasara yenye tujawahi pata tena siku ingine. It might take us another 2 years ndio tupate tena bei ikirudi ya mahindi kwa sababu ya imports.
Mahindi saa hii kwa senda kidogo inauzwa shilingi 100. Kwa sehemu zingine kwa mataoni kama Mosbridge, ngao mahindi store iko hapa inauzwa 120 ama 100 flat.
However, speaking on phone to KBC Channel 1, Agriculture Principal Secretary Professor Hamadi Boga said the earliest the imported stocks will hit the market is in the next 2 months.
Yeah, and the importation that is being done by millers, that maize will not arrive here before June. So all they need is to release the maize to the millers right now. Nobody will go for expensive maize from Mexico because it's being charged duty at 14%. Because it takes 60 days for a ship to sail from wherever to here, from Mexico to here. It takes 60 days.
As a measure to protect local farmers, the imported maize will attract a 14% import duty. Despite this, Strategic Food Reserve Chair Noah Wekesa is encouraging farmers to stop hoarding maize and sell directly to millers since the prices are still favorable.
People are going right to the villages, traders are going right up to the villages to get money, to get maize at 3,000 shillings. And now, the information from millers is that they are buying even at 32, 34.
Sisi tunaomba tu kama wanabiashara, tunaomba tu serikali tu ihurumie wakulima wetu ili tuweze na 3,000 wanunuliao na 3,000 kwa gunia ili na sisi nasi wakulima tuweze kufaidikia hapo.
Farmers also fear that importation of maize is likely to expose them to unscrupulous traders who will exploit them on pricing. Benson Roba reporting for Channel 1 Business.
On movement as a result of coronavirus have affected demand for office space, reducing occupancies as several firms has resorted to working remotely. The latest Nairobi Metropolitan Area Commercial Office Market 2020 report by Citten shows the pandemic has also slowed foreign investments as firms globally have put on hold expansion plans in anticipation of market developments. Many companies have resorted to allowing employees to work remotely to decongest their offices in compliance with the government directive on social distancing in public places so as to contain the spread of COVID-19. This has seen physical offices taking a brunt as demand drops. The latest report by real estate firm Citten says demand for office space in recent months had been driven by the growth of small and medium-sized enterprises and the entry of multinationals. The COVID-19 pandemic has, however, hit the most SMEs hard, with some forced to close shop or downscale operations, making office space unaffordable. The latest Citten report indicates that office space supply has grown at 7-year compounded annual growth rate, 24.7% to 36.3 million square feet in 2019 from 7.7 million square feet in 2012, driven by the positioning of Nairobi as a regional hub, thus increased entrance of multinationals as well as growth of small and medium enterprises. In the short term, Cyton projects a reduced supply of 6.9%, attributed to a market correction as the forces of demand and supply come into play. Amid the spread of coronavirus, retailers are projected to invest in the e-commerce infrastructure and also decentralize to locations that are easily accessible from people's homes. Shops in Egypt have gradually reopened after a month as authorities are easing some restrictions to pick up the economy amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Over the past month, shops in Egypt were forced to close at night during weekdays and shut completely on weekends. Here are details of this and other stories from across the globe. This week, the Egyptian government has lifted some of the COVID-19 related restrictions. All malls and shops can now operate all week long until 9 p.m. when the night curfew begins. Traders say buyers are not purchasing much of the merchandise in what they attribute to lack of purchasing power since people have been at home without work for over a month. Egypt's government is trying to strike a balance between precautionary measures to fight COVID-19 and gradually resuming economic activities. Since mid-March, Egypt has been implementing temporary closure of learning institutions, entertainment places, restaurants, malls, museums, archaeological sites, besides suspending flights and halting sport activities to curb the outbreak of the highly contagious virus. Meanwhile, with the global demand for flowers very low as the world focuses on fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, growers in the Netherlands, the world's largest flower exporter, are being forced to destroy their stock. Usually, April and May are the busiest months, but this spring, 80% of all flowers have been destroyed. In the Netherlands, more than half of the flowers sold come from the massive and colorful fields in the west and the north of their country. But since the coronavirus outbreak, flower shops around the world have closed and sales have plummeted. Flower firms have negotiated an important aid package from the Dutch government. Finally, food insecurity has become a major concern in New York City as the region and its residents continue to grapple with the crisis and economic fallout brought by the COVID-19 pandemic. With devastating job losses in the city, the number of people relying on food banks is rising alarmingly day by day. Even before the coronavirus hit New York City, more than 1.24 million residents are struggling to put food on the table. And now the situation is worse. The coronavirus outbreak has caused massive layoffs, exacerbating the already existing challenge of food insecurity in New York. Schools across the city are now offering 3 grab-and-go meals a day from Monday to Friday to anyone who needs it. Fiona Shuru for Channel 1 Business News. Moving on to sports news, Italian football top league Serie A sides will be allowed to return to individual training on 4th of next month and team training on 18th same month after the Italian Prime Minister Giuseppe Conte announced that the first steps in lifting the country's coronavirus lockdown.
There are hopes that Serie A fixtures could resume between 27th of next month and 2nd of June, with an end date for the season of early August. However, there was no formal announcement on the possibility of when Serie A might resume, even behind closed doors. The Italian Football Federation hopes to begin testing players for the virus at the start of May to allow for a safe return to training and has already drawn up a medical protocol. Serie A was suspended on 9th of March and a number of players tested positive for the virus. Meanwhile, Formula One boss Chase Carey says he plans to start the season in Austria in July after France became the latest country to postpone its race. French Grand Prix organizers said on Monday the race at Paul Ricard on 28th of June was off because of the country's ban on major events mid-July, but Curry said he was increasingly confident with the progress of plans to begin the season in July. He said that the first race was expected to take place in Austria on 3rd to 5th of July. Meanwhile, Silverstone has said the British Grand Prix cannot be held with the spectators, but the track is in talks with government on the availability of an event behind closed doors.
We have come to the end of Good Morning Kenya news briefs, but I'll be right back, so we're going on a short break.
Unajua amekuwa akiangalia faili za babako za kitambo, sheria na masharti.
What? Hata dada yako anazitumia?
You will all sign new contracts. Exclusive contracts. Any extra fights will have to be approved by me.
The Juakari operators and others, our saloonists, Mama Mboga, our barbers, our economy to a large extent depends on you. We cannot allow Kenyans to die because of non-distancing in any sector. So those of you who are carrying out the hair-cutting business, in barbershops, in saloons, I am appealing to you today. Ensure that social distancing, fumigation of your working places, masks are used at all times. Just assume that everybody is positive and now deal with that situation. Participation of our citizens in the fight against the disease would be our key success factor.
Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. We continue with Good Morning Kenya. It is exactly 8 a.m. and it is time for our segment In the Headlines, where we get to sample out for you some of the stories that have been written in detail in our major newspaper. And this morning we begin with the Daily Nation. The header on the Daily Nation this morning is Virus Fight in Crisis Over Strike Threat, where as Kenyans are lining up to clap for frontline medical staff, lack of protective gear and risk allowance drive them to the point of work boycott. This story has been fleshed out in page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Still on the front page there's the image of the professor, the late Professor Ken Walibora there, and the hospital say we did everything to save the author. So Kenyatta National Hospital CEO tells Senate team that medics did what was humanly possible to save Ken Walibora, just saying that they did all they could to save the professor. Still again on the front page there's an issue to do with restaurants to open under strict terms. Remember yesterday while the CS was giving his daily presser, he gave some guidelines on what restaurants need to do if they have to reopen during this coronavirus pandemic. It continues to say that owners of eateries will be required to get their staff tested for COVID-19. Customers must wear masks, have temperature checked, and wash hands. This story, of course, again, just written in detail inside the paper, but we'll be unpacking more of the story as we continue unpacking more of what has been written in the paper. But now, why County has got it right in stopping the spread of COVID-19. Remember when the first restriction of movement was announced in the country, 4 counties topped the list of those restriction of movement, and that included Nairobi County, Mombasa County, Kilifi, and Kwale County. But out to Kilifi County, Kilifi County has managed to keep its coronavirus cases constant at 11, all thanks to quick social interventions and rapid contact tracing since the first case was reported. All right, so this is even after neighboring Mombasa County struggles to contain the outbreak as its numbers rise daily. So this just shows how Kilifi County has managed to keep its numbers at 11, not rising beyond that, in as much as it was one of the countries that had been put under restriction of movement just to contain the spread of this disease. There's also another story which was on the front page of the same paper. This is still the Daily Nation, and again in regards to matters to do with strike of health workers. And like I've kept mentioning, even as we do in the headline segment, is that it is a worst time for health workers to issue a strike notice. But this just continues to say that strike, the caption actually reads, strike threat by health workers put COVID-19 war to the test. So what exactly is making health workers to want to strike in this difficult time? Well, so a looming strike by health professionals who are asking for improved working conditions could paralyze operations in hospitals and quarantine centers at a time when the country is battling the COVID-19 pandemic. The nurses, clinical officers, pharmaceutical technicians, and other cadres of the health workers are asking for national county governments to enhance their safety and welfare. So their cry is for the government to enhance their safety and welfare. It continues to say that the umbrella organization, the Kenya Health Professionals Society, KHPS, is set to issue a strike notice as measures of last resort to have the workers' grievances addressed. Remember, the health workers are crying for the government to enhance their safety and welfare, and this is why they are issuing a strike warning. So probably according to them, as they issue this strike warning, maybe the government would listen to them.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, let's look at the Star. Kenyan scientists find HIV drug, to be taken yearly. Kenya scientists finds a HIV drug to be taken yearly. Yearly, every year. University of Nebraska, Professor Benson Edagwa modified an existing ARV drug. Yes, that is what is happening on the Star. Let's have a look at that. I'll just read a line or two, or let's just go to the next story on the page. My problem started with a visit to Ruto. Yes, that is Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko on the first page, and the byline, why me? Embattled Nairobi Governor Mike Sonko now appears to be blaming his woes on his association with Deputy President William Ruto. Yes, you could have a look at what exactly they're saying about that on the Star. First and foremost, let's look today at the Star survey. Do you support partial opening of restaurants? Yesterday's question, do you support extension of school closure until June? 80 said yes, 20 said no. Yes, would you give us more?
All right, moving on to the Standard now. On the front page of the Standard newspaper, at least slightly away to do with matters concerning COVID-19 and to some politics now. This is on the front page of the Standard newspaper. The header reads Raila's coalition dilemma. It continues to say that the ODM leader is at crossroads. The BBI train has lost its mojo. Sticking with Uhuru brings the advantage of incumbency at the next election, but there's no guarantee that Mount Kenya voters will bend to the president's wishes. William Ruto may walk out of Jubilee with troops and build a protest alliance with Kalonzo and Mudavadi to scuttle Raila's state house dreams. Just like the way Raila did to Kanu and Uhuru in 2002. This story has been fleshed out in page 2, but we'll be unpacking more of that story as you continue seeing what more has been written in the Standard newspaper. Still on the front page, matters to do with the restaurants to reopen and the guidelines that have been issued by the CS Cabinet Secretary, by the Cabinet Secretary of Health, and it reads that restaurants now open to serve meals. And just like I mentioned, the guidelines have been well stipulated. Also, there's did judges allow state to spy on your calls and text? We'll be seeing again more about that inside the Standard newspaper. But coming now to matters to do with politics, just like we had seen on the front page of the same paper, alliance plan and Ruto factor add to Raila dilemma. So the headache facing ODM leader is identifying a winning lineup and popularizing himself and BBI while demonstrating it is not about him but the country's interest. So much more of what is being spelled out there is that BBI is not about Raila, is not about ODM, but it is about the country's interest. But just looks like the leader of ODM is grappling with the issue of trying to make Kenyans understand that it is not about him, but it is about the citizens, or better still, about Kenyans. But again, more of that story has been written in detail in the Standard newspaper. Moving on to other matters now, coming back to COVID-19. So Kagwe issues new set of regulations for hotels to open. Eateries and restaurants which wish to reopen for business will now operate from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. Remember, I had mentioned that some guidelines were issued by the CS yesterday as he was giving his presser on the hotels that want to reopen. And one of them is that they will now need to operate from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. following detailed guidelines issued by the Ministry of Health. The new rules require all eateries to only recall staff whose COVID-19 tests have returned negative results. The staff vitals, which include temperatures, and those of customers should also be recorded daily. That means they should be recorded daily if at all you want to open your restaurants, and the temperatures have to be checked again also daily. More of what is on the Standard newspaper, again, matters to do with education. So the Jubilee laptop project that failed Kenyan child. The class 1 pupils who were promised laptops in 2013 are now in class 8. You can imagine the ones that are promised, the first lot that are promised laptops are now in class 8, waiting to sit for KCPE. And, you know, just from what we are seeing, these laptops have not yet been delivered to these students who are now set to sit for their exam. So what does it mean for this promise that was issued? Well, it looks like it was just an ambitious initiative, but it continues to say that when the Jubilee government committed to provide all Standard 1 pupils with a laptop in 2013, the education sector was excited. Kenya was fast joining the clamor to integrate information and communication technology, ICT, in education by empowering learners and teachers in schools, a call that had taken a center stage in many countries. But the initial phase targeted about 1.1 million pupils in Standard 1 in all the 23,000 primary schools, which has not yet come to pass, because just like what you're reading in the header, that those pupils are now in class 8 waiting to sit for their exams, and they have not yet seen these laptops delivered to them. So what does this mean about promises issued by our government to its citizens?
Well, still talking about matters to do with education. Private schools defend high online teaching fees. Yeah? Private schools defend high online teaching fees. That is on the Star. And let's talk about restaurants. I know some of us really love to eat out. Eateries to open, but under strict measures, right? Alcohol can be served to customers waiting for an order or after. Wow. Alcohol can be served to customers waiting for an order or after. Yeah, that is a story on the Star. Now let us look at what we had talked about on the Good Morning Kenya news briefs to do with drugs allocated in Kisumu County. Kisumu receives a 40 million shilling supply for health centers. Kisumu Governor Anyang' Nyong'o yesterday received a pharmaceutical supplies worth 40 million for distribution to health facilities. Well, still on matters to do with the Star, let's have a look at Treasury. Matters to do with Treasury. Treasury slaps governors with 46 billion budget cut. Yes, Treasury slaps governors with a 46 billion shilling budget cut. Yes, that is on the Star. And they had to really analyze, like a research, like this is on the Star, where budget cuts by county are analyzed with every county, current county, and the reduction of money in terms of how they have been cut by Treasury. Kindly have a look at that. I'll read a quote on that. The projected revenues raised nationally for the financial year 2019-2020 have dropped significantly due to unforeseen impacts of COVID-19 pandemic by 233.8 billion shillings. Dori?
All right, so coming back to the Daily Nation this morning, more of what has been written in the Daily Nation. Again, this is also in regards to the issue of opening of restaurants. So let's just see how the Daily Nation has written this story. So the restaurants given green light to reopen under strict terms. Remember, the government has allowed restaurants to open their doors even as the number of coronavirus cases rose to 363. Yesterday, more cases were confirmed as of yesterday, bringing the total number of confirmed cases in the country to 363. The number of death cases still standing at 14. So the Health Cabinet Secretary Mutahi Kagwe said that while Kenya looks to other countries to learn how businesses can reopen, the government has put measures that could keep the country safe. We have to take our own measures, which are based on our experience and what we have seen. So this is what the CS is saying, that also reopening of restaurants is just us as Kenyans taking our own measures based on us as a country and not necessarily following what other countries are doing. But if others continues to say, and he noted that people working during this period have been struggling to find places to eat. All right, and recommended additional rules for restaurants that will operate to serve them. So I continue to say that owners of eateries will be required to get their staff tested, just like what you had seen on the Standard, the way they had written that the staff have to be tested. That is daily tested of COVID-19, and they can only open their business once their employees have tested negative. So it is mandatory that they can only open their businesses once the employees have tested negative. They have also announced that they will be opening from 5 a.m. to 4 p.m. So this is for the restaurants that seek and wish to reopen. Those are just some of the guidelines that were issued by the CS yesterday in regards to that matter. But moving on, mass testing caught many of us unaware. So this is a story of a young lady just narrating how mass testing caught her unawares, the issue of quarantine, having to be isolated, after she thought that she had the disease. So it just says that we had toyed with the idea that the ministry did not have enough testing kits to waste on us. And as a result, we had gone on with life in a carefree manner. So this young girl continues to say that you need concrete strength to survive quarantine, okay? But there is one question I always asked. Just who ate that bat in China? And she continues to ask, who ate that bat in China? As I wondered, as I lay hopeless in this poorly ventilated room. Just before you continue unpacking more what is in the paper, Fiona, yes. This just brings that aspect of misinformation. There are some Kenyans who still think that this disease is as a result of some people in China eating a bat. And just from the story of this young girl, she keeps asking, who really ate this bat? And why do I have to suffer as a result of someone eating a bat?
I cannot respond to politicized, racist comments.
It is just the aspect of misinformation
it's
again.
Like silence. Silence for me.
So who really ate that bat? That is the question that she is asking. That is again on the Daily Nation newspaper.
Well, let me have a look at what is happening on the Star. Kenyan scientist unveils ARV drug to be taken once a year. Okay? Once a year, ARV drug. Yes. New medicine is an injection given once yearly, meaning persons living with HIV will be spared burden of taking pills daily. Researchers celebrate discovery as a breakthrough. Yeah, so we have Professor Benson Edagwa, yes, a Kenyan chemist working on a HIV cure at the University of Nebraska. I feel like universities out there, they have like coronation of just politicizing facts that you get in class.
Yeah.
Yes. Let's talk about Sonko. Sonko blames his miseries on links with Ruto. Huh? Governor accused unnamed people of branding him Tanga Tanga sympathizer. And they have to put the picture and the date of the picture. Picture was taken 21st of August 2017. Yeah, Mike Sonko and Deputy President William Ruto during his swearing in as Nairobi governor at Uhuru Park, August 21st, 2017. I think he just wanted to finish all formalities, so a handshake would survive, you know? Yes, Doreen?
All right, coming back to the Standard, there's a header here that reads, "Farms send staff home without salary." Remember, it is a difficult time, and for you to have to part away with the half pay cut or no salary at all, it is just an issue by itself. But the flower farms in Naivasha have started sending home hundreds of workers as effects of COVID-19 bite. So earlier the workers were on half pay. So note this, that these same workers were on half salary, but now they have to make do with no salary at all. So it continues to say that yes, the workers were on half pay as the employers monitored the European market, which has been adversely hit by the pandemic with many of the countries on lockdown. So it just says, yes, the workers were on half salary, but now they have to part with no salary at all, because again, also the farms have to stay afloat. But just like I mentioned, it is a difficult time for you to have to part away with either half salary or no salary at all. But the farmers in flower farms in Naivasha may just have to make do with that. But coming back again to the Daily Nation, remember that story that was on the front page of the Daily Nation in regards to the late Professor Ken Walibora? So this is what the Kenyatta National Hospital had to say in regards to this issue. "We did everything to save Walibora. Celebrated author was marked as an unknown African man." Kenyatta National Hospital yesterday gave a blow-by-blow account of how celebrated writer Ken Walibora lost his life at the facility, even as it denied negligence in attending to him. So they denied that negligence in attending to him, which ultimately means that they attended to him. But appearing before the Senate Health Committee, KNH Chief Executive Evanson Kamuri said doctors at the facility tried what was humanly possible to save the life of Professor Walibora. According to Dr. Kamuri, Professor Walibora was brought to KNH in an ambulance on April 10th at exactly 9:53 a.m. and was marked as a known African man, meaning that he wasn't known at all. He told the committee in the Zoom meeting that immediately the author was brought into the facility, he was categorized as a critical patient and immediately taken to a 7-bed capacity restriction room that is within the ICU room. So the KNH officials there are just trying to say that they did all they could to save the professor immediately when he was brought to hospital, but he just passed on.
Well, having a look at the Star, I have to start reading an apology by the Star, yes? Honestly, should have been on the front page, guys. Yeah, in our edition on Thursday, 23rd, let me just have to lift it up. In our edition on Thursday, April 23rd, 2020, we stated that the government had spent 40 billion fighting the coronavirus. The correct position, English, the correct position is that the National Treasury has allocated 40.3 billion shillings to manage COVID-19 pandemic. Kindly have a look at that apology on the Star. Doreen?
Now, coming back to the Standard newspaper, remember that this was a story that was also on the front page of the People's Daily earlier this week, which was actually on Monday, and in regards to the grabbed land in Rwai. So the government should repossess all grabbed public land countrywide. It says that last week's repossessions of 1,600 acres of alleged grabbed land in Rwai, Nairobi has generated lots of public interest. There has been a lot of speculation regarding just who the real owner of the land is. Apparently, the 1,600 acres are part of 3,000 acres set aside by the government for the expansion of Dandora sewage treatment plant in the 1980s. All right? So the riddle of the grabbed public land is far from being solved despite punctuatory efforts spanning decades. So this just goes to show that the issue of grabbed land, the grabbed land in Kenya is still an issue that we continue to grapple with, and repossessing of this land will do the country more good. This is just what has been spelled out in this article. But more stories have been written in detail in the 3 newspapers that we have been sampling out for you this morning. That has been our In the Headlines segment, where we highlight for you the stories written in detail in our major newspapers. This morning, we have been looking at the Daily Nation, the Standard, as well as the Star. And that brings us to a close of our segment In the Headlines. We take a very quick break, but plenty more after this break. So stay with us.
Unajua amekuwa akiangalia faili za babako za kitambo, sheria na masharti.
What? Hata dada yako anazitumia?
You will all sign new contracts. Exclusive contracts. Any extra fights will have to be approved by me.
The Juakari operators and others, our saloonists, our mamboga, our babas, our economy to a large extent depends on you. We cannot allow Kenyans to die because of non-distancing in any sector. So those of you who are carrying out the hair-cutting business in barbershops, in saloons, I am appealing to you today. Ensure that social distancing, fumigation of your working places, masks are used at all times. Just assume that everybody is positive and now deal with that situation. Participation of our citizens in the fight against the disease would be our key success factor.
Welcome back and many thanks for staying with us. Good Morning Kenya continues and we want to embark on our first interview of the day, and this is in regards to celebrating the unrecognized worker, or if you may, the donkey. Remember, the 1st of May is Workers' Day here in the country, International Workers' Day, and the donkey has become not unrecognized, not celebrated. To help us understand more about this is one Florence Ndeti. She wears many caps, but among them, she is also skilled in matters to do with human rights as well as animal welfare. Thank you very much, Florence, for making time to join us on the show this morning.
Thank you too.
All right, so we begin. Before we go to the whole issue of International Workers' Day, let's just first begin with the issue of the donkey as an animal. Make us understand what makes it so difficult for us as humans to appreciate, recognize, and remember the donkey as a laborer, especially during International Workers' Day.
Thank you. I begin my discussion by saying that normally the donkey is regarded as a beast of burden, and mostly it's used in rural areas and mostly by the poor. In most cases, it is seen just like any other animal, and I must say that in most cases, it is termed as a livestock on paper. But practically, when you look at how even the donkey owners and users handle the donkey, it is second to any other livestock. It's not like cattle, it is not like goats. It is treated after the other animals have been treated, and that is why it is not visible at all. But when we look at it from the work, analysis from the work or contribution to the economy and social welfare of our people, the contribution is enormous. And that is why we came together as animal welfare organizations in Kenya under the umbrella of Alliance for Donkey Welfare Organizations in Kenya to discuss and raise awareness on how important the donkey is, especially to the rural poor.
All right, of course, and Florence will be coming to the contributions of the donkey a bit later, but paint for us a picture of some of the donkey's contributions, especially in terms of livelihoods, and this is for the poor, the elderly, the PWDs. What exactly are the donkey's contributions to the livelihoods of these kinds of persons?
Some of the common ways of using the donkeys, especially arid areas, is they facilitate fetching of water. The distances that donkeys walk are too high. For example, if I give an example of Kitui, during the dry spell, we normally have between 8 and 10 kilometers to cover in a day. So they facilitate fetching of water from the water source to the household. It is not only water for domestic use, they also fetch water for other livestock. Other ways on how the donkey is used is to fetch farm produce from the farm to the home and from home to the market. And also the same from the market, in case there is not enough at the household level, they are used to vary products from the markets to households. In other areas, they are used to transport things like pasture for livestock. Some areas, they use them even to transport households, especially during migration time.
Okay.
Especially areas of northeastern like Turkana and elsewhere. And they also play a very important role of moving or transporting the sick, people with disability, children, in times of crisis, that majority of us don't appreciate that role that they play.
All right, and you've also said that, yes, they play a big role in transporting persons with disability. And we know that persons with disability tend to be the overlooked persons in whatever kind of circumstance. But just aside from transporting PWDs, is there any other contribution of the donkey, especially when it comes to persons with disability, just minus transporting?
One of the things that are easy to do with people with disability is that if you have a donkey at household level, it can do so many other things.
Okay.
Transport goods to the market that you cannot do because you have a disability. At times they don't have a means of transport because donkeys are in the interior areas of the so they carry them either by cart, and they are sometimes when they have to take on their bag to be moved from one point to the other, and other sources of income where if you have it, you can give it to somebody who is able, especially the youth. They work with it and they bring the donkey back in the evening plus some money. That is a source of income for the people with disability.
All right, so Florence, now let's come to the economic impact of this very useful animal, just from the way you've explained it as we are beginning. But coming to matters to do with the production chain of several industries, make us understand what exactly is the critical link to the production chain of several industries in the country? How are the donkeys a critical link, especially when you look at industries such as agriculture industry, construction industry, and even the mining industry? How are they a critical link?
The donkeys play critical link because they are facilitative in nature.
Okay.
Especially, let me pick like agriculture. They are used for farming. They transport the produce to the markets and from the markets back to households. For construction, they support provision of water at different levels, and of construction materials. And in all this, the donkeys, if you calculate on an average, like we did a research in partnership with Cairo, on an average in a month, if you calculate the work done by a donkey, whichever work it does, you can take home 11,400.
Okay.
Given that with reference to 2017, the population of donkey was around 1.8. And taking that 75% of that population to be a working animal, you will end up with around 15 billion in a year. A contribution by the donkeys across all sectors into the economy that is not recognized and appreciated in our general talks as donkey as a working animal.
All right, Florence, you've extensively explained, especially on the matters on the issue of agriculture as well as construction. But when it comes to mining, how critical are they as a link?
Mining, they are also possibly used for transport of minerals from one point to the other, because mostly in mining areas the terrain is also very bad. So they move the mining products from one point to the other. And again, they are also used to move some of the heavy materials within mining areas, which also gives an opportunity for the donkeys to contribute to the economy, together with other issues like transportation of food to mining areas and also clean water for use by the workers within the mining areas.
All right, so let's come to issues to do with the International Workers' Day, which is coming up on a Friday. That is the 1st of May, happens every other 1st of May of each year. And the top of the list when it comes to International Workers' Day is always about salary increment. It always tops the list. But if the welfare of donkeys is observed, then how does families and households who depend on these animals have increased income, increased salary, or even increased monies?
Okay. Looking at the International Day, we look at the government to give us salary increment, and we anxiously wait for that. The same way that people look at salary increment is the same way that in a related way how a donkey contributes to income or increase in income.
Okay.
From a welfare perspective, we say if a healthy donkey which is taken care of by the based on 5 animal freedoms, that is, its hunger and thirst is taken care of, all discomfort environments are managed. It has no pain, injury, or disease. It expresses normal behavior, and it has no fear or distress. You get better service from that particular animal. That means you do more work with a healthy animal than an unhealthy animal. Like if you have a lame animal or a lame donkey, moving of that donkey is an issue, so it will do less. If you have an unhealthy donkey does more work, hence you get more income from the work that is given by the donkey. And in that connection, we as animal welfare organizations, about 5 of them, we look at how we emphasize our donkey owners and users to take care of the donkey so that they can maximize it by giving it better feeding and watering processes, ensuring that it is comfortable and it's well managed generally.
All right, so basically, Florence, what you're saying that even as we talk about the issue of salary increment or the fact that, yes, it always tops the list on every International Workers' Day, that when it comes to the donkeys, that if they're treated nicely, accorded all the respect and value, that they can also yield produce for their owners and their users.
Yes, and that means then we would humbly ask Kotu through a trolley to also begin celebrating the donkey in International Labor Day because of the work that the donkey does as a worker.
Okay.
We've been saying it is invisible work. We would wish to see donkey as a visible worker. And then we also say that the value of the donkey needs to be appreciated because the contribution of 15 billion in a year, even when you compare such with other companies like Baburi, for example, I was looking at EPZ as a population, employee population about 56. We have 1.8 donkeys that are working with women, youth, and children. So it is the high time we begin to think about the donkey and also appreciate it and celebrate the donkey for its contribution to the society, and also check on the challenges that are facing the donkey. Ensure that donkey owners and users make the best out of donkeys and take care of the donkeys.
All right, well said, Florence, and we'll be coming to the challenges also a bit later. But let's come to the issue of employment. We know that employment is an issue that we are constantly grappling with here as a country, especially amongst the young populations, or if you may, the young adults. Does a donkey create employment? And if it does, which kind of employment can this animal create, especially for the young population?
Over 70% of the donkeys are used for work, and especially for the youth. In most of the market peri-urban centers, you will see that youth using the donkeys to transport or supply water, movement of goods from one point to the other. In areas like if you go to Moya, you will see donkeys all over transporting rice and related products from the factory to the household to the farms. We have other areas where, like areas of Kajiado, where in the market donkeys are also being used by youth to do many other transportation issues. When we come to farming, we also, like in Kitui, we farm with our donkeys. We connect them with the bulls. Sometimes we use them individually to do some bit of planting or plowing. And that means that the donkey contributes a lot in terms of employing. That is why I was saying if you calculate the contribution, which is normally not feasible, you will take home like 11,000 in a month from a single donkey. So youths are using the donkeys, women are using the donkeys, especially in rural areas, which is not valued work. A donkey takes a pack of 4 20-liter gel cans for water, and you walk for 10 kilometers or 8 or 7 in a day. If you don't have that donkey, that work has to be done because water has to be available for domestic use, for sometimes for livestock. And if it is the donkey is not there, like we've seen some cases when the donkeys were stolen and slaughtered, you have the woman or the children have to do it. So they have to ferry that water. So you do 4 trips to the water point instead of 1. So this is where we are saying that we need to value the donkey, because if I'm doing 4 trips, it means that in a day I'll do nothing else other than going and back, and I might not be able to make the 4 trips. But with a donkey, I'll do 1 trip, go to the river, come back home, and I have a lot of other time to do many other things. I can take care of the family, I do farming, I can do, I can have time for merry-go-round and many other things. So those are things that we are saying. It saves time, one. It helps us move a bit of huge load than we can do as human at a time. And then it saves a lot of hassle, pain, because if I have to do 4 trips to a river, I'm saved 3 trips. I'll do one and then I'm safe. So that means that the donkey still contributes to the economy in a substantial way.
Well, all right. And we had talked about the issue of salary increment, which always tops the list when it comes to International Workers' Day. Another issue that also tops the list when it comes to this specific day is the issue of safety of workers, where employers always have to ensure, or they should ensure, that their employees work in a conducive environment. But Florence, when it comes to the donkeys, what can be done to ensure that these animals can also be able to work in a safe environment, conducive environment, and also can be treated in a humane way?
What we need to do, and also what we've been advocating for, is that we need to, the same way I need to be healthy to deliver in my work, it's the same way that the animals need to be taken care of. They need to be watered, they need to be attended to when they are sick. They need to be sheltered in an environment so that they are not exposed to extreme climate. Where possible, they are well taken care of. We also need to make sure that vet services are available so that in case it is unwell, there's a professional who can attend to the animal just like other livestock. There's also always an issue on workload, because donkeys seem to have a lot of energy that not another animal can do. We must learn that the same way a human being works for 8 hours, the donkey needs to take a minimum load that it can manage in a day, and it is well taken care of. So a healthy donkey will give you a better service, and we need to make sure that we check on things that are threatening, like educating communities, users, and owners on how best they should take care of the donkey to make sure that it doesn't have things like wounds. If it has, they are cleaned, it is fed well, it is given a load that it can take, and other related programs.
All right, so Florence, even as we still stick with the issue of ensuring that the donkeys have conducive working environment, because for us as human beings, we constantly take care of ourselves. And even as we talk about the International Workers' Day, it always tops the list. And employees will always be quick to just make us understand that employers need to treat them well. They need to ensure their health is okay. They need to ensure that their working environment is safe. And yes, you've talked about the conducive environment for a donkey, but just what exactly makes us overlook the aspect that the donkey needs to be treated safely, it needs to work in a proper environment? Is it because it's an animal? What makes us overlook that fact?
I think there has been a culture, like I began saying, that the donkey is termed as a beast of burden. As in, it can take anything. And that takes a bit of a level of ignorance, because like any other animal, it will get tired, it will get sick, and it needs attention. So it's about ignorance. It's about an awareness that it needs to be taken care of. And I want to emphasize that donkeys, when they are stressed, they can look at you and they can cry, things that people don't know. A donkey which is well taken care of, when you call it, it looks at you and it draws some attention to hear what you want to say. So the same way, some of the things that we do them in a way that it does not give the donkey the dignity that it requires. We have also an experience on the donkey slaughter, which we had 4 slaughterhouses which were licensed here in Kenya, and they were slaughtering donkeys. One of our findings was that they were using inhumane way. You take a blunt object and beat a donkey in the presence of another live donkey, which according to animal welfare, that is an inhumane way of killing an animal. So those are things that we say it is out of ignorance, it is out of culture, that we were told from the beginning that a donkey is a beast of burden, and that culture has to change. And that is why we are challenging we have been out there advocating for closure of the donkeys slaughterhouses so that the donkeys can be, because their breeding process is not easy. Actually, they say it is not viable. It has to be natural. You cannot do it artificially. That we need to ensure that donkey slaughter process does not continue, because if it continues with the rate that we've known, that Carol tells us by 2023, if we were to continue, we would have non-donkeys in Kenya. And then you look at the population that is using the 1.8 million donkeys. Where would they be? The burden goes back to women, children, and to some extent to men and youth who are now using the donkeys to earn some income.
All right, so you really talked about the issue of donkey slaughter, which also is one of the challenges that the donkey faces. But break down for us some of the other challenges that this animal faces, minus just the donkey slaughter.
Another challenge is treatment. When it is sick, it is not attended to. People continue using it. Another challenge is that feeding programs or feeding habits of us, we work with the donkeys the whole day and we just let it go to find pasture for itself, which strains it. The other challenge is that we have cases of theft where you leave your donkey and it is stolen and you never find it. So, and the challenge on breeding, where we are saying it is not very easy to breed a donkey because it does it naturally. So if we don't do that, it means that if we don't continue advocating for breeding programs, we have a challenge where we might have an extinction of the donkeys in the near future.
All right, so remember we are talking about the unrecognized worker. In this instance, it is the donkey. We are trying to better understand how we can value and treat these animals, and Florence Ndeti is helping us understand more about that. Now, coming back to you, Florence, you have mentioned the issue of breeding program, lack of breeding program for the donkey, which is also one of the challenges. But make us understand, when you talk about the lack of breeding program, what exactly do you mean, or what exactly does this entail?
According to the experts, you see, like other livestock, you can do artificial insemination for like cattle. But for donkey, we are told that it is almost impossible. It has been tried, it has never worked. So for a donkey, they need to be in a space, in a friendly environment where they can interact with each other and produce. And that is why, according to the professionals, most donkeys would conceive during rain seasons because they are not working too much, especially in areas where they are used to fetch water, and they are relaxed. Donkeys, again, we are told they cannot conceive when they are stressed. And by the way, they get stressed like human beings because of maybe they are sick, they are being overworked, and in that environment, they cannot. So what we are saying is, as a country, within Kenya, we don't have a breeding program where we say there's a place where donkeys are kept for breeding. It is natural, although now people have come up and they would want to test it. They should be somewhere in an environment which is friendly, they're being fed, they mingle with each other, and they produce. So in Kenya, we don't have such a breeding program. And now people are coming to understand it is an opportunity that they need to explore and see if they can have it, to make sure that the numbers keep increasing in addition to the natural way of reproduction.
All right, and Florence, you really explained to us so much about the economic impact of this animal, its usefulness, and you have really better understood how important the donkey is, especially in terms of economic impact, in terms of helping the elderly, the PWDs. But let's still stick on the challenges. This issue of the challenge of extinction, make us understand, how is this an issue? And to what extent?
This is an issue because citing back to the population of 1.8 by 2017 census.
All right.
Or by last 2017, we did a study with Cairo, and they looked at the number of donkeys that were being slaughtered in the four slaughterhouses in Kenya, and there was an average uptake of 1,000 donkeys in a day. So, based on that analysis, they also looked at the analysis on how the natural reproduction process was. And they realized the slaughterhouses were taking 5 donkeys in a day, and 1 was born in that day. So based on that calculation, they were able to affirm that by 2023, we would have no more donkeys because of the donkey slaughter. And the interest is actually on the skin as a priority and some level for the meat, which are being exported to China. We have been asking ourselves that if the process of slaughter continues as it was, this would result to slaughter of all the donkeys, and we'll have no more. We'll just talk like we used to have donkeys. Then the question is, the rural poor who use the donkeys, who takes the burden? Like I said before, it is the women at first, children, and some bit of youth. And a challenge for the youth, because we have an experience where some of the youth who lost their donkeys through theft during the peak moments of donkey slaughter, they turned to drugs because their only livelihood was dependent on the donkey, and the donkey was no more. So challenge of extinction is threatened by the slaughter of donkeys for export.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, so coming now to another issue, the Kenya's National Donkey Welfare Day is normally celebrated on the 17th of May every year. So even as we talk about the International Workers' Day, which will be coming on this Friday, the Kenya National Donkey Welfare Day comes on 17th May of every year in about 5 counties in this country, the counties of Kisumu, Nyandarua, Kajiado, Nakuru, and even your own county, Kitui. But from where you sit, do you feel like this National Donkey Day has been given enough media presence in terms of coverage, at least for people, for owners, for users to know how best they can value and treat this useful animal?
I must say yes and no, because because we always have media, but you realize for media they do short clips and other issues come up, and that's an history. And we are saying that for media to help us in these advocacy levels, they need to help us, or we need to support the media to generate consistent information. That is why in education you go to school for years to be able to conceptualize issues. We need consistent awareness and media engagement to be able to articulate the importance of the donkey to our people, and also seek to influence their attitude and behavior and on how they handle the donkey. Because that makes sure that even the donkey is appreciated, and during the International Labor Day, because of Workers' Day, so that because its contribution is huge that most people don't know. And in another way that the media can help us, we also have these short messages that you keep, or debates that you have. If we have more of those debates and emphasize on the importance of the donkey as a livestock and its contribution to the economy, most people will begin to appreciate the donkey and never ever label it as a beast of burden.
All right, so what you're saying is that the media can do more. But coming now to another issue, earlier this year, at around February there, the CS Agriculture, Peter Munya, had directed that all donkey slaughterhouses needed to be closed, which is a good move, at least in helping to protect this animal. But do you feel like the government, through this ministry, is doing enough to help protect this animal, or they could do something more? And if they could do something more, what more can they do?
I must say that we appreciate dearly the pronouncement by the CS Munya on the closure of slaughterhouse. A point all the donkeys were fine. And even that move that actually came as a surprise community to his office, telling him, here we come, we cry, getting our donkeys are getting finished. But we know that after 2020, because they want.
All right. We seem to be losing the audio of Florence Deti, but she's just explaining to us the usefulness and the value of this animal and how we can take care of the donkey, even as we look forward for the International Workers' Day, which will be happening on the 1st of May. Happens annually every year on the 1st of May, just to celebrate workers. And just like we've mentioned, among the issues that always top the list is the issue to do with salary increment, where employees would always want their salaries to be increased. There's also the issue of safety and health of workers. And just, Florence, like the way you're explaining to us that yes, it was a good move by the CS, and you are telling us, what more do you think this ministry can do?
Force the ban one so that all the slaughters change business and do other businesses other than donkey slaughter.
Okay.
And we also want to see enforcement of CAP 360, which is not on animal cruelty, and also review of existing policies so that they can stand the precious animal as it is.
All right. Now, coming back to another issue which we had slightly touched on earlier, and this is in regards to the general public getting message on how they can treat and value donkeys. From where you see it, or just also using your docket, what more are you doing? Yes, you've mentioned that the media can do more, and they're doing good, but they can do more. But from where you sit, what more are you doing to ensure the general public is getting enough message, getting enough information on how they can value and treat this useful animal?
We are doing a lot through radio to raise awareness.
Okay.
We are working with all stakeholders, especially government, to raise awareness on the role of the donkey. We have about over 60 groups across Kitui that are discussing donkeys and livelihoods and trying to see if they can change their behavior, influence how they practice, how they handle the donkeys, and also make sure that the donkeys are sheltered, for example.
Okay.
Testing is well done. If they have wounds, they are made so that they can experience the better environment.
All right. Okay, so yeah, of course, the donkeys faces many problems, and Florence is explaining to us also more of what they are doing from their docket to help the general public get message, get information on how they can treat this animal better, how they can value them. Just as we finish up with the discussion, Florence, if you can get me, many of the problems that the donkey face include matters to do with malnutrition, lameness, work-related injuries. So what can you attribute these problems to? Okay, so that
we know what we're supposed to do.
All right.
And we don't do it. Plus poverty, where we are too poor to think of the donkey. Other things as a priority, other than the welfare of the donkey.
Okay, so thank you very much, Florence Ndeti. We have been speaking with Madam Florence Ndeti, who, like I mentioned, couples up as does so many things, but among them is she is skilled in matters to do with human rights as well as animal welfare, which is what we were discussing this morning, how we can, as a society, treat this animal better. It is a useful animal. We are looking forward to the International Workers' Day. She has raised a number of issues that workers normally raise on this specific day, as well as the things that we can do to ensure that also donkeys can get the same kind of treatment just as we as humans. But I want to loop in my colleague Regina, who's on the other side of studio, and you've been really also following up on this discussion to do with how we can treat donkeys better. International Workers' Day is coming up on the 1st of May, which is this Friday. Just from what Florence has been saying, do you feel that we can get to a point where we can start treating donkeys better, just like the way we treat ourselves as human beings?
Well, that is relative, and I would want to actually not relate about, donkey being, a beast of burden. Yes, it is, But that also puts a question on how do we treat our domestic animals. I'm sure this is something that is very alien, because if you were to just take a drive or a walk around within estates or areas that use donkeys to perform some of the chores, water transportation, some of them even used to carry heavy loads from one place to another, is that we do not appreciate our domestic animals as we should. And maybe that's the high time that us as Kenyans changed our view, because these are animals that help us get our work done, especially at home. But now looking at the issue of donkeys and the closure of donkey abattoirs across the country, just because of the looming extinction of this beast of burden by the Ministry of Agriculture there. My point is, from a business point of view, is that since the legalization of donkey slaughter here in Kenya, we've seen that this is a market, this is a business that has grown, especially with the growing demand from Asia. So how about we talk about how we can support the growth of population of donkeys? How about we do research and start, getting issues of hybrid donkeys so that you can satisfy that market? I mean, at the end of the day, the legalization of donkey slaughter was to support the economy through the sale of donkey meat and its hides. So this is something we need to look at. KEMRI can do it, and other institutions that do research, and genetics, to just try and support, either we grow more, we get hybrid donkeys so that we can satisfy that growing market. And that market is untapped from the Kenyan side. You can imagine now with the closure of the abattoirs, there's been a lag. Kenya has been contributing, though not so much, because this is something alienly new for Kenya. But we can look at other measures to support the growth of donkey population, because this is something, if it's going to go extinct, this is an animal we will miss. And how about we take advantage of this situation and increase its population, Doreen? That's my take from a business point of view. We are not supposed to stop matters in terms of investment in something new simply because we are seeing the end of it, but also putting in place measures to ensure that we do not go extinct in as far as donkeys are concerned. And I'm sure there are institutions that can come up, we maybe hybrids, and ensuring that we have these issues. Now, Doreen, let's look at the COVID fact sheet this morning, given that we're going to be speaking about the importance, or rather the role that ICT sector is locally playing during these COVID-19 uncertain times. Over to you, Doreen.
Exactly, and just like you've put it, Ray, it is time for now to us look at the COVID-19 fact sheet, where we look at the numbers, we look at how different countries have been faring on in terms of confirmed cases, recovery cases, as well as death cases. Remember, a couple of weeks ago, countries such as Italy and Spain were topping the list of countries having the highest number of confirmed cases as far as coronavirus pandemic is concerned. And this, and also since when the first cases were announced in different countries, it saw a number of countries just putting putting measures, if I may say, some putting more stringent measures, so others even going to an extent of locking down, ensuring that people do not move around, just to see how better they can contain this virus. And just from what we are seeing from this fact sheet, and I'll be looking at I'll be giving you the numbers in a bit. Countries such as Spain and Italy are no longer topping being the first countries or better still, being country number one in terms of the highest number of confirmed cases. Because from what we are seeing, even as of today, US tops the list. United States of America, right as of now, with about over one. I mean, this is a number of, in terms of new cases, over 151 new cases so far. The number of death cases in that specific country stands at about 56,803. Remember, like I told you, in as much as, yes, the countries that, yes, may be having a huge number of confirmed cases, it does not ultimately translate to the fact that, yes, it also has high number of death cases. Countries such as Spain, Spain as of now stands at 229,422, and US has already surpassed that number. When it comes to the number of death cases so far in Spain, it is about 23,521, and you can see just from what I was reading for you earlier, US has high number of death cases compared to Spain. When it comes to total recoveries, it is about 120,832. And also what you're seeing from more of the figures that you're sampling out for you, or even at least in recent times, it is that we are seeing more of recovery cases than than death cases in different countries. Let's look at one last country, and this is Italy, which has about 199,414. So this is more of what you're having in terms of numbers in different countries as far as coronavirus is concerned. But we still have another discussion coming your way after this break. We take that break. Good Morning Kenya continues after this, so stay with us.
Greek cuisine is appreciated all over the world for its simplicity of flavors and fresh ingredients. The people of Greece take their food very seriously, as it is a cultural tradition not to just eat, but a whole package of conversation, family union, and friendly sharing around the dinner table. Join us as we explore the cultural flavors of Greece.